If you call me a fallen demon, any of those things, you need to take a look in the mirror. You really, really do. God bless you, I guess. I hope God blesses your life with prosperity and happiness and love and generosity and grace. Other than that, if you go on here and you say things like death or he getting hit by a car or things like that and try to provoke me or try to emotionally injure me, those are acts of social terrorism. Alright? It's not acceptable. You can have an opinion and there's freedom of speech, and then there's terrorists. And if you're going to say things to injure someone, then you have to be responsible and compensate for the injuries that you're trying to cause. If whoever got on here the other day and said that if I got hit by a car, that was okay, then you just said things to try to injure me. You went to war with me. And I'm not going to go to war back with you. I can forgive you and hope God fixes whatever you got going on. And but beyond that, you're committing acts of terrorism. And if I really, really wanted to, I could find out the property, in other words, who sent it, and I could go after you for slander, committing threats, and acts of terrorism. There's a point to where you have to be responsible for you think. We've got freedom of speech. But if you're trying to injure someone's psyche, you have to answer for those things. And in our society, the most powerful thing we have is our voice. And if you're going to use the most powerful thing you got to try to injure someone and then say, oh, it's okay, I can do whatever I want, I can say whatever I want, I can hurt whoever I want. It isn't me. The universe, God will take care of you. You might be the next one in a car accident, I hope to God not. Or get hit by a car, or get sick all of a sudden. And I hope that the one that wrote those stuffs, and Neil, P-A-R-A-W, listen, anything that is fallen, hold on. It's not for you or anybody else to call them fallen, because you're not God. It's not your decision to figure out who is fallen, who is what, and anything else like that. Our job as Christians, and the only job that is given to us, is to spread God's word. And that's it. Unless you feel that you are God and that you are the Elohim. And if you look that way, you might want to rethink that you are the created, not the creator. Alright? You are not the King of Kings or the Lord of Lords. And if you're... get hate out of it, man. Life is too short to hate and to spread hate. If you had any idea of the things that have happened to me during my life, here you go. I'll give you an example. I was a 7-year-old little boy, and I had no idea that my biological dad was not my dad. I mean, that the dad I had was my stepdad, not my biological dad. I looked up to this man. He taught me how to fight, made me laugh, and all kinds of stuff. I loved him like a dad. He and my mom split up for a little while, and he had a trailer about a county over. And my mom dropped me off there one night to spend the night with him. Well, we hung out that day, and he kept drinking and drinking and drinking. Well, about that time, it was time to go to sleep. He laid down on the couch, and like usual, I laid down in front of him. He grabbed the remote and turned the remote on a porno. And I closed my eyes. And he started dry humping me. And touching all over me for about 2 hours. Until finally I got the nerve to stand up and I went into the next room. I didn't have a phone or nothing to call. So there was a CB in there. So I spliced the wires and tried to plug them into the socket. And it about electrocuted me. So instead of, when he called me, he said, "Hey, get back in here." And I was so scared that I urinated all over myself. So if he tried to mess with me or touch me, and I don't even know how I thought that. It was such a quick reaction. I just stopped and started urinating all over myself. Well, I laid down in front of him again, and he turned the porno back on. And I covered my eyes, and I just sat there with him dry humping me for 1 or 2 more hours. And then he got up and went to his room. All right? I'm sitting there shaking cold because I've urinated all over myself, and he calls me into that room. Well, then I got really scared, and I urinated all over myself again. And I went in the room, and that's when he started to try to, he tried to pull my pants down and said, "Let me show you how to make that thing hard." And tried to reach in my pants, but he felt that my pants was wet. And when he felt my pants were wet, he said, "Oh God, you pissed all over yourself. Well, you're just going to have to sleep in them." Turned over and went to sleep. The next day, he got a lawnmower, set me on front of the lawnmower, and drove me down to the creek with a shotgun. Actually, it was a big shotgun. It was like a 12 gauge. And he would say, "Now, you ain't going to talk to nobody about this." Boom! And was more or less trying to create fear so I wouldn't tell nobody. And so I know that that man was not in his right frame of mind when he done that to me. That he was intoxicated, and I forgive him. I have never cried. I have never wept, or really, I think, grieved over that stuff. That's one thing. I was bullied in elementary school when I was younger. Bad. To a point to where the psychologist came to our room and said, evidently they knew that I was one of the ones that got made fun of enough, because everybody got in a circle and they all apologized to me. Well, instead of agreeing and giving me some kind of confidence, and all the teachers knew what happened to me, I went from an A student to staring off into space constantly, making straight F's. And all of a sudden, the teacher, while we're in the circle and they're apologizing, the teacher says, "Whoa, why are y'all apologizing?" I thought it was, he had done this thing. And then they turned around and said, "Yeah, well, it's his fault that we do this because he lies." And the only time, all young people lie. I was very, very poor. And they had motorcycles and four-wheelers and beautiful houses and nice Nike and Adidas clothes, Old Navy clothes. And I was wearing the same stuff every 2 or 3 days. Now, I had a wonderful mother. One of the best God-sent mothers that there has ever been. She was very quiet, a Christian, laid back, but blunt and stern. I've done chores all my life. I've always done my dishes, washed my own clothes, kept my room clean. Well, I know now that during my life, in certain instances, the people around me were trying to put me in weird positions and then trespass on my mind, because there's things that I've never remembered that have been placed back into my spirit that weren't the way that it's being portrayed to me behind the veil in the spirit, in my mind. And now I know that it wasn't so much that I done something wrong, it was their intentions to have things happen a certain way so they could be later on used to try to